thought I've always lived in a bigger house or a bigger place, and you know, you've seen the one with the view and everything. And
Right.
I wondered how I. Oh, is it running now?
Yeah, it's, you know, it's totally casual. So, yeah.
Hi.
Hi, June. How are you?
I'm good. Wonderful to hear your concerts this morning.
Thank you. It's a big pleasure to be able to play for a live audience again.
I should say.
Lonely 18 months.
When I walked out, Timmy, I hadn't seen an assemblage of people that large that I was supposed to address in the longest time. So I walked out, there's 120 people there, all safely distanced, all like they onboarded the right way. They were outside having coffee and a package of treats. And my knees got a little wobbly because I was like, I'm not even playing. And I was like, I haven't talked to this many people in so long. And one of the things that I really keep coming back to is when we first talked about this, you were going to quarantine for 2 weeks in your massively busy schedule. Like that shows how much you really love performing and sharing this music, and with an audience that this is your third time with us, and we just thank you.
Of course. I mean, I would always make an excuse to come to Vancouver because I think it's such a wonderful place to come back home. Also, it's more than just playing any concerts. It's a city that I grew up with in my formative years, and it's always such a powerful and much. I mean, when I do perform out, it's great because it's a new audience. But there's something to be said about going back to where I came from, and also just sharing all of that experience going outside of BC, out of Vancouver, and bringing that back in, and to share all of that knowledge and experience with the audience that heard me since I was a toddler.
Oh, that's really great. I think your program was just absolutely perfection. I mean, not the playing as well.
Thank you.
But, you know, the Bach, and then the Penderecki, and then the Caprice, the end. I mean, I don't know, don't you think that was just about perfect for a program?
June, I walked backstage like immediately afterwards, and Timmy, he didn't break a sweat. He was.
Oh no way!
His head, like I looked at his hair, still perfect. After I finished playing, I looked like Castaway, like after jumping into a pool, like I sweat all over everything. Like you, not a hair was out of place. And I asked you, I was like, "Are you hot?" Like, well, it wasn't very hot. It was a nice day today. And I was like, "You just finished playing like a monster program. The Penderecki is like the octaves, and then your upbow staccato, perfect. Like, how do you tell us? Were you nervous at all?
No, I think actually it's. I mean, definitely my concept has changed over the pandemic, because before I think I would definitely be a lot more uptight. But now I'm just like, you know what? It's great just to be to play for people, and also it's just like I've come to realize how worthless it is to play for nobody, especially what I do, because we're always encouraged to practice in a little room, but also there has to be a carrot at the end of the stick, which is to play for an audience. And now I'm just kind of embracing and soaking up all of that warmth and energy that I'm more or less enjoying. I feel like when you enjoy doing something, maybe it feels less of a workout. I don't know.
Well, they say that the music performer needs a listener to make the whole thing happen. And, you can really feel that, I think, a lot, the energy of the audience and as you're performing. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, what's more than that is that Timmy just has an incredible facility.
Right?
Like, whereas if I were to finish with a Paganini, well, at the end there would be nobody in the audience. Nobody would be there. They'd be like, let him practice. Is he practicing? I think he's practicing. No, but it was really incredible.
How do you keep so focused? Like say the Bach, which was for memory. How do you approach that? Like, do you play it repetitively, of course, for the muscle memory, but how do you keep your focus when you're actually playing the whole thing through?
That's a good one, memory-wise. I would say, first of all, it took 10 years to memorize.
I'm glad to hear that, Jimmy. I thought maybe you just did it overnight.
No, I wish I could. I mean, I'm learning the next one now, which is the third sonata, and I started, about 2 years ago. It's still, for me, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't even remember past the second page. But maybe also, I learned this when I was about 16 years old, and it's been on and off, on and off, on and off. And I think it's performances like this that continue to strengthen my memory, because it's not just about memorizing the notes, it's also memorizing the uncontrollable circumstances. So sometimes when you hear in a different acoustics how a certain note responds back, it can really throw you off in your memory. And so for me, every experience that I played this, I did this in the competition, I played this one for so many different high pressure environments, and I think every one of those experiences kind of gets soaked in and continues to evolve my dimensions of memory for this piece. So that's how I keep focused, because I'm able to, even if something happens, if someone moves or I hear a different way of how my violin is reacting, I'm able to immediately relive an experience that also when that happened, and remember how I lost my train of thought and what exactly went wrong. And that's all happens in microseconds. But that's kind of how Bach for me really, that's how much concentration it takes to memorize Bach, I think. You think so?
Well, Timmy, I think you're at a different level than me, because when I played the Bach suites, and I don't mean to be such a goof, it really is, this is what happened for me. I was playing my Carnegie Hall debut recital, and I was playing the fourth Bach suite, and my Allemande was maybe like barely a minute long. It's supposed to be about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. It was a minute. I got stuck in this weird hip hop loop of 4 bars, and I just couldn't get out of this 4 bars. So I just ended up with the right chord. At least I played the right chord. I played an E5 major chord, and I went forward. And I think the reviewer at the thing was like, shortest Allemande ever.
It's like, how much do you need to drill you at this
point, right?
So Timmy, you don't have the kind of memory where you see the page.
I do as well. That's a different dimension as well. So when memorizing Bach, I feel like it's got to come from 3 different places: your ear, your brain, and also visual.
Gotcha.
So in case of one doesn't work, there's a backup.
Really?
Yeah, because I feel like this is with Bach fugue, especially the fugue, right? Because it goes on for like a little too long. It's about 9 minutes long, and it keeps continuing to finish on the same cadence. And how do you not get mixed up? Because at the spur of the moment, you just never know where your body's gonna go. So it's when the ear part of your listening, if that stops, then you have to be like, okay, visual.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you have what they call photographic memory.
No, I forced myself to have photographic memory for this piece.
I see.
Yeah, not everything is like that. Like this one, I had to force myself because it's too scary to depend on. Because harmonically, that's the thing about Bach, and that's where I find Penderecki and Bach so similar. Because at the same time, Bach is such an ancient composer for classical music, but at the same time, it still feels so contemporary at the same time. I don't know, it's not easy to listen to.
Right.
It still takes a lot of focus, and even to this day, it's not as opposed to Mozart, where the harmonies are much more expected. With Bach, it always somehow confuses the player, the listener, and I think that's the thing that makes it so fascinating.
Oh, I'm glad you had a good time yesterday, because
I did.
It was tremendously cerebral what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was so musical. It all came together beautifully.
Thanks, June.
Oh, wow. But with the Penderecki, that's an interesting piece.
It is.
Is there any format to it? I know he has the melody that repeats, but is there anything else that one can hang on to, so to speak?
Absolutely. So the basis of this, as I mentioned in the concert, is based basically on a very simple 8-note chromatic that goes down 4 notes and up 4 notes. Starts with an E, and then the thing is that it continues in a form called La Folia, which is a very ancient Baroque type of dance form, which Vivaldi wrote a lot of music, and Tartini and Corelli, they all wrote La Folia. But it's not such a form that was used past the Baroque period, maybe 1 or 2. But he took that almost. So in some ways, there was this period of neoclassicism. He's more like neo-Baroque at this point. He took the form of having variations with one main theme. But I think his way of approaching this was that he was highlighting a particular violin technical challenge. So there's double stops in the first one, then it goes into the pizzicato, and so forth, and it goes on for 12 variations. And then the thing about Penderecki is that he's a composer that's known for writing very intense music, and I was kind of, I didn't know how people were going to react at first. Some people I thought were going to hate it, some people I knew were going to love it. But what I did get after that first reading was people could take a breath afterwards. So at least it like held people's breath. It's like,
what did you say at the end of your Penderecki today?
Let's like mellow down now. Let's
chill. Let's take it down a notch.
Yeah, let's take it down a notch.
That was good. Well, we've got another whole program next week,
That's
right?
right. Yeah.
Yes, and this next program for the second week of the residency actually is a very personal one of mine. We're starting off with Debussy's Violin Sonata, and the overall theme, I will just say before I go on with the program, it's based on this idea of Europe and Asia, East Asia, and somewhere in the middle as well. But definitely that entire trajectory, because for so long, and especially more recently, I've been trying to understand my background in history fitting in with what I do, because for the longest time I've understood that this was music, but at the same time I'm like, wait, where does my lineage kind of also fit into this? And picking repertoire and seeing the global influences that have affected the more recent compositions in the 20th century as well. So Debussy's Sonata, Debussy being a French composer in the Impressionistic period, he was very inspired by Japan and the pentatonic scales. So in this sonata, you will hear that although it is very impressionistic, the melody and the harmonic structure of it is very based on a pentatonic scale. And I think it's in some ways, they had this period of exhausted, I can't pronounce it, exoticism.
Exoticism.
Exoticism, yeah. I haven't used that in a long time.
I've never used it.
It's one of those words where you don't use. But you almost feel like there is that little Madame Butterfly feeling to it.
Sure.
Even though that was Puccini. But anyways, going forwards, then we're playing two waltzes by Tchaikovsky. And Tchaikovsky, for me, is one of those really interesting composers because he was one of the most, and one of the first formidable composers of Russia, of that time, the Russian Empire. And understanding how the Russian Empire expanded all the way through Siberia, all the way to Alaska, basically, and also into Mongolia and Manchuria at the time, for me is really interesting to see how that has affected Russian folk music. Of course, there's more than one type of folk music, but understanding that that was in the works of it as well, expansion of the Russian Empire, and understanding as well what differentiated itself from Western European music. So the Valse Scherzo in particular has this middle section where you really feel like you're somewhere far.
Really? Like Siberia or something?
Can I play it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is where I go. Central Asian almost.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. So, and so for me, that's been something that I love about Tchaikovsky, his violin concerto. It's just always had this flavor of the East that's very subtle because it's very much Western music still, but had that flavor that was very exotic. And then finally, the last piece on the, before the last piece, then we're going to Shostakovich, which also very formidable Russian composer that was very inspired by Tchaikovsky. And Shostakovich, what he is most well known for is the fact that he lived through the Soviet Union. So the transformation of the Russian Empire into the Soviet Union and seeing how first of all, they incorporated all the Central Asian countries, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, you name it, it's huge, right? And that had to influence, there's a lot of, a very diverse country at that point. It was more than just what, European-looking Russians. You had people from Central Asia as well, Mongolia, part of the Soviet Union at some point as well. And so Shostakovich for me were actually, I wanted to also incorporate the element of community engagement. So we're having a young artist join us. I think he's at the Vancouver Academy of Music. Is
That's
right. So
Nice.
Kai,
Yes.
yeah, he's gonna join
Oh, great.
for this. It's very cute pieces. It's very Shostakovich. I'll play a little bit.
Yeah.
It's full of sorrow and it's just beautiful. That's a little bit of the first movement,
Wow.
and then there's also a little bit of the Russian polka, and then the third one, and it goes into this waltz as well, and then it's a very virtuosic piece. I'm happy to also, I love incorporating somehow the local community as well. And I thought that this is kind of my first time to also initiate this idea, because what I always like to get in the concert hall is more than just having a guest artist come. It's also about who's here and how can we attract the audience to come more than just someone that's out of town or just being a guest artist. So I hope this is a nice idea that the audience will enjoy, because they get to see someone of their own also be on the stage, and hopefully we can learn from each other as well.
I think that's lovely. I mean, that was our aim, wasn't it, Adrian, to get to know you, have the audience get to know you, and especially working with this young man, that's going to be incredible.
Exactly, and the last piece on the program is called The Sunshine on Tashkurgan, and that's when we're really heading out to the Far East. And this, the composer of this piece, his name is Chen Gang, and he was the composer of the Butterfly's Lover Concerto. And this particular piece is a very virtuosic one for the violin, but it's also based on the folk music of the Uyghurs, so in Western China. So, many people, I think it's very interesting as well, because understanding my own roots, understanding that China is, much more than just people that look like me. There's also people who have a different religion. It's a very diverse and multicultural place, but that doesn't get portrayed very much in the media. And playing music, I think, really opens people's eyes, because they're like, oh, it sounds like Aladdin. I was like, well, it's, there's many cultures, but it's a wonderful piece. And I'll play a little bit of the opening of this. It's I've been playing this more recently, especially during the pandemic, because I've always wanted to find a showpiece that also could represent a little bit of more than just, the Sarasates and the Wieniawski. But it starts with... Super cool. Yeah. So that's how we're ending the program, and of course it ends with a big bang.
Oh, wow. Well, that's just incredible. I can hardly wait to...
Me too. Yeah.
Next.
Could you tell the audience a little bit about what that technique is? It sounds like it's a little bit something they say, like it's a definite technique of this.
Yeah, It's definitely something, because the violin, the Chinese violin, the erhu, it's a very similar type of writing for the Western violin. And what they do is they basically have two strings, and they're not able to, of course, have more than two voices. But also this character of the this slide in glissando, put into Western terms, is what it's called, but in that it's just expression and kind of one finger going, kind of a little mouse, or like a cat, maybe more like a cat, right? So it adds that different flavor to the violin repertoire vocabulary.
Oh, I can see that.
Amazing.
Yeah, amazing.
And Timmy, I just wanted to pass a question from one of our audience members after your concert this morning, and they were saying, what is the upbow staccato that you were showing them? Like, why is it hard?
Oh, well, so the bow is not meant to actually stop. I mean, when we're talking about, because the violin is a very melodic instrument, so of course it's stuff like, it's more singing and lyrical. But one thing that Paganini did, which I'm not sure if any other composers before this time actually wrote and highlighted this technique, but we also have the ability to stop our bow in a very small amount of space. So, and basically it sounds very virtuosic. It's not easy to do, and I think in some ways that's how he kind of highlighted that violin technique to all of his pieces. And then continuing onwards, that's kind of been our specialty for violinists, is to do this upbow staccato technique to add virtuosity and just bravura. Yeah.
And what about downbow staccato?
Oh yeah, that's hard. That's hard. Yeah, I can kind of do it, but it's like because if anything, this goes against gravity. At least this goes kind of, gravity kind of pulls, so we can slightly tug up against it. But this, gravity is pulling us, so we have to like go against it.
I see.
But I'm trying to think. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, great downbow staccato too. Really.
Yeah. It's not as easy as the upbow staccato, but both are hard. But the downbow one, some people play this piece called Hora staccato. I don't know how they do it. I can't do it, but it just sounds like chalkboard scratching at this point.
It does.
Yeah, but that's one of the techniques that
That's
they
cool.
use. Yeah.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Well, Timmy, thank you so much for taking us on this tour for next week's program and for telling us about this morning's. I mean, just adding like layer upon layer. I think it's really interesting for our audience to hear from that point of view.
Yeah.
And Julie, do you have anything you wanted to
No, it's truly what we thought the residency would be, that you'd be in the community and digitally with saying what you're doing and all of that. It's just really making our wishes come true, I think.
And I think Kai's going to be really just thrilled to play with you. You know, there is, when I was growing up, there were people that I would look up to because they'd be like, Yo-Yo Ma. Like, obviously I'm looking up to him. But then there'd be like someone that's closer to my age that I was like, wow, like that's incredible. And I think that Kai is 17.
Yeah, it's a good age.
And so, and you had just shared your age earlier.
Yeah, 10 years apart.
Yeah, just 10 years apart. Now you're an international superstar. and
I haven't changed.
And it's just, I feel like we're gonna try to come in and get some footage of you two, maybe after you've had a couple of times to play through it, just to see how you're working together. And I think that would be very interesting for our audience to see.
Yeah, can't wait for that. We can't wait to meet him.
Well, it's been lovely to have you here, for
Thanks,
sure,
June.
in my house.
Thanks for having us in your house.
Oh,
Yeah.
very. My pleasure, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Timmy.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, we'll see you guys. Well, concerts next week.
That's right.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday in the morning. Musicinthemorning.com or .ca?
Musicinthemorning.org.
Okay, .org.
.org.
Yeah.
10:30 a.m. He's a natural. He's doing my job for me.
Remember to like and subscribe.
Great, Timmy. Wow.